right, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on here this afternoon. For starters, outside it is very windy. It's pretty hot too. In fact, last check on temperatures, we're sitting somewhere in the 80s and 90s across the area this afternoon. I can look at those numbers real fast for you here and tell you. And of course, we are seeing those gusty south winds. Actually, the temperature right now in the Falls is at 91 degrees. Vernon sitting at 96. A little bit cooler over towards places like Bowie and Bridgeport, Decatur. It's a little more humid over that way, so temperatures are only running in the mid-80s over that way and in that direction. So while we're quiet right now, as we head into the evening hours, we're talking about after 5 or 6 o'clock, there's been some, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, there's been some hints that a couple of isolated thunderstorms may try to develop along what looks like a retreating to the west dry line. If we do get thunderstorms, then they probably would be severe. I believe that just kind of looking at things, our main concern over at least this part of the area would be some large hailstones. I can't rule out, and it's a big if, a storm can last into the evening hours and maybe kind of move over towards parts of maybe up towards central Oklahoma, that there could be a tornado or two that may try to develop if we can get storms that will persist into those areas. But that kind of remains to be seen. Garrett James just popped into the studio here. You're good, man. I'm just doing Facebook Live. You're good. Yeah, it's pretty warm out there. So far, not a whole lot going on. Her model has storms now along the dry line, kind of around 6 or 7.
Okay. And one of those up towards Lawton.
Kind of get initiation over towards Vernon and kind of develop up towards Lawton. So that's probably, just monitor and track the dry line, and we'll kind of see where things go from there. I'm about to do a little analysis here, though, and kind of talk about things some on this Facebook and YouTube Live here this afternoon. So here we are. You can see this is what we call a surface analysis, and where you see those little wind barb looking things, that shows the direction the wind is coming from. The red would be the temperature, the green would be the dew point temperature, and you can look out west towards like Altus, those areas. Childress, dew points are in the 30s. That's the low dew points. But if you look to the east, the dew points are running in the low 60s over towards Bowie. Here in the Falls, we've actually seen some dry air mixed down, and the dry line is actually nearer just east of Wichita Falls at this moment. That's why it's gotten to 91 degrees. So our humidity has actually kind of crept down a little bit. But as we head into the evening, there's some indications that moisture that's to the east of us will try to push back west some. And as it happens, there might be just enough convergence along the dry line for an isolated storm or two to pop up. Some of our weather information have been showing that yesterday, and the model that we like the most is called the HUR computer model. It's just now finally starting to show a few storms. This is CAPE. This would be instability, a lot of it, 4,000 joules. That indicates very high levels of instability or CAPE in the atmosphere. Basically where you see that 4,000 joule, that 4,000 area, kind of across from about Oklahoma City down to just along or just east of I-35 there, or just west of I-35 rather. But again, this evening, as we begin to see the sun begin to go down, this could begin to push back west just a little bit. If we look at the visible satellite imagery, when we want to look for where thunderstorms might be developing, this is what we're looking at. And if you look, you can see what we call increasing cumulus clouds, but actually back in the dry air, kind of back behind the dry line. You're seeing quite a few cumulus clouds here trying to develop kind of back towards Vernon and kind of over into those areas. You're seeing some cumulus clouds also kind of up towards central Oklahoma. And then if you look back down, there's some down in northwest Texas. But again, that's mostly kind of behind the dry line. That's probably because the air's gotten pretty hot over that way. And those bases, though, the bottom layer of those clouds, since the air is dry, is going to be way up high in the atmosphere. But again, this evening, as that dry line pushes back west some, those storms could try to develop and could become a little severe. So that's something that we will be keeping an eye on. And if we go over to our weather models, we're going to look at just a couple of things that I'm going to shoot off of here real fast. I'm actually kind of got all of my stuff ready to roll now for the evening newscast, so I don't really have a lot left to do. But let me log into my account here, and then I'm going to zoom into the area that we want to look at. But just to kind of reiterate what we're talking about here this afternoon is an isolated severe threat, mostly looking at hail. But yeah, if things can persist into the early evening, then we might start to think that there could be at least a low end threat of a tornado or two. But as of right now, that kind of looks like a lower end threat of that, mostly a hail threat here. Certainly not one of our more classic severe weather setups. The main storm energy, what helps kind of generate and push the atmosphere up, is located well to our north this afternoon, and that's why we're not seeing more in the way of storms developing down our way. So here's the latest HRRR model. Let's see what the latest one is showing. I know that earlier runs had some storms trying to fire along, but this has been the most inconsistent model that we've had. This takes us at 5, 6, and you can see some stuff trying to develop kind of along that retreating dry line at 7 o'clock, Vernon, north of Lawton, and you can see those storms developing northwest of Wichita Falls around 8 o'clock. And again, any of those storms there would have the potential to produce some pretty big hail. And again, if they can persist and we can get the storms to become strong enough, especially up towards central Oklahoma, we might see a little bit of a tornado threat, but that looks like the lower end of things, to be honest about it. But that's what the HRRR computer model. This is another one I'm going to show you. It's called the FV3. It's been pretty good showing these storms, but oftentimes the FV3 model, in my opinion, is a little overdone with convection. But it's handling the atmosphere pretty good, and it shows storms developing, after 4 o'clock. As of right now, there's nothing out there yet, but that could change. And if that were to become true, there could be some big supercells up towards central Oklahoma if that solution is right. Let me look at the latest RRFS. This is another high resolution computer model. Of course, this has not updated lately, so yeah, that doesn't update that often, so that's not going to do us too much good. All right, so again, bottom line here this afternoon, I'm not expecting a lot. Most of us probably won't see anything, but if we do get a storm or two, then some large hail is going to be our primary concern with any supercell that can get going, especially in the central Oklahoma. So that's something that we will be keeping an eye on. We've got Garrett's in, and you can see there's actually the latest 3K NAM model. And look at that. That's kind of lining up with the FV3, and it shows quite a few storms blowing up. And that would have storms persisting into the evening hours. If that run verifies, and the threat for severe weather would probably be a bit more significant there and be more widespread than what I'm showing. That's the first time I've seen that. I'm not going to rule that out, but let me look at the significant tornado parameters. Yeah, that looks very similar to that FV3 model I was talking about. So if that happens, we may have a more widespread thunderstorm event. And look at those significant tornado parameters going up too. That shows an atmosphere that would be favorable for tornadoes. So if we could get thunderstorms to develop and they could persist into the evening hours, we can't rule that out. But I still think this is mostly a big hail threat. But we'll have to just keep an eye on things to see how everything kind of materializes. That photograph is very favorable actually for rotating storms and possible tornadoes. It's showing low-level shear very, very high if that is correct. So if this solution, the 18Z3K NAM, is right, then we may have to worry a little more about significant severe weather. So let's hope that that's not right. But it doesn't look that far off of what some of our other high-resolution stuff shows. Right now, in my opinion, the atmosphere is too dry, at least over us, to produce tornadoes. You got to have a way for that condensation to get lower to the ground so that circulation can reach down and stretch down to the ground. But this evening, as that moisture tries to increase some, if we do get thunderstorms to going, then you have a better chance for them to produce. That's called surface-based storms. Better chance for them to produce bigger hail, stronger wind gusts, and if the atmosphere spins just right, then there might be a bit of a tornado threat. But that wouldn't happen mostly until after the sun goes down, or around sunset, or after the sun goes down. So we'll have to just keep an eye on that. And if your questions are you included in on this? Then I'm going to say anybody in northwest Texas, north Texas, southwest, south Oklahoma, and up towards central Oklahoma could see a severe thunderstorm this evening. Again, hail's the main concern. Lower threat, conditional threat for maybe a tornado or two. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Of course, we'll have the Comanche Nation Entertainment First Alert Storm Tracker out. Garrett will be out there. And I've also got my Storm Spotter network too, and I've got a couple of those guys that might be kind of in the area chasing some too this afternoon. So we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll keep an eye on it for you.